Yep, it started, so let's start it. Okay, April. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for joining, and it means a lot to you for you to come and talk about women empowerment and about your story and uh, for our younger audience and what message they could take from you.
Great. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right. So my first question would be, so you are the marketing expert at Infobip, right? So what would be your daily chores at Infobip?
Wow. So at Infobip and like many companies, I'm sure it's an ever-changing day.
Right.
But in a perfect world, it's a balanced day spent on strategy around ways to engage and delight customers. And the other half is then spent on execution, insights,
Mm,
analytics, and optimization from those learnings. So, that being said, there's always a lot of fires that come up and
mm.
a lot of meetings that end up shifting focus quickly and often.
Right. That's right. All right. So, and I have the next question with me, which asks is like, while growing up, who were the women in your life which served as an inspiration for you?
Wow, that's a good one. So I grew up actually in a small town, and
Mhm,
not to age myself, but at a
mhm,
time when women were not really career focused. So,
mhm,
for instance, my mother, she was a stay-at-home mom, and the
mhm,
majority of my friends and parents were also stay-at-home moms as well. And
mhm.
I think sadly in those times, if a female was working, it was kind of viewed more as she had to work instead of she
Right.
wants a teaching career. I mean, it was just
Mm,
different. So my mother was an inspiration who taught me, albeit I don't think she really knew, that
mm,
persistence combined with patience and grace is kind of a superpower. So in my younger years, I think
mhm.
all the women I was surrounded by, I somehow felt like they had more to say and more to do. I mean, that
Mm.
may or may not be a true observation, but at a young
Right.
because I had that feeling, they were also an inspiration for me early on.
Mm.
And I kind of think that developed my professional drive later in life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think, and of course, as a teenager, I was also inspired by highly recognized women. That kind of happens when you get into those teenager years. People like Oprah, because they were building
Mm.
their own story, kind of, based on their passions. So I
Right.
think as a teenager, but I don't know. I think as I got older,
Mm-hmm.
my inspiration shifted. So it was less famous people. I
Mm.
realized the importance of less famous people and the voices of those people being heard and kind of their aspirations being realized.
Mm.
So, and I do have a daughter, and so my daughter's always a top inspiration. So I try to lead by example so that she'll be a
Mm.
confident and empowered to be the woman she wants to be. Um,
Yes.
yeah, not to
I'm
age. I mean,
sure. I'm
yeah,
sure you were an inspiration to her, I'm sure.
yeah. But I always tend to think of less famous people
Right.
as my true inspirations until 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was about the first time that I've always had male counterparts to whom I reported.
Mm-hmm.
So many of my inspirations throughout my professional career as I've grown up were women who were either my colleagues or
Mm-hmm.
for women that I managed. So, whether they know it or not, they inspired me every day to be a better person.
Wow, that's beautiful. But I really like that quote that you said, persistence combined with the patience is a very, powerful. I think it's a very powerful message out there for a, younger generation of women, like,
Yeah,
always persistence and the patience is the key, right?
it is. I think in tech and because those industries move quickly,
Mm,
you have to be persistent, but you have to be patient.
right, correct, very much. And then we have one more important question, which we always ask from our guests is empower women. And how do you yourself empower as yourself and the women around you?
Empowering women to me is it's more about encouraging them. So
Mhm.
encouraging them
Right.
to do, that thing that they've been thinking about, but we're too scared to do, or
I
giving them the
know.
encouragement to, have a voice, give your
Mhm.
opinion and your thoughts, and maybe even giving them a platform to test their ideas. And I think, I don't know, I think women by nurture, we're empathetic nurturers.
Right.
But we also have this like superpower to be relentlessly persistent to get to a solution. So, you know, I mean, no matter the situation that's put in front of us, we will certainly try to figure out a solution, I think.
Yes, we do have that nature. Yes, I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
We'll get it done.
Yeah. And then, yeah. So what do you think should be a woman's priority in today's time and the age?
Ooh, women's priority in today's time and age.
Mm.
I'm not honestly sure my answer to this one is going to be necessarily about this time and age as much as I think
Yeah.
always.
Because it's always changing and then you don't know.
Right? I think
Right.
we should prioritizing, empowering, and lifting other women up.
Right.
I really think a woman's priority should be what is most important to her and prioritizing how to achieve that personal kind of utopia, so to speak.
Right.
It's their utopia might be built to build a team or to be a creator or to be a CEO or even being famous or maybe being a spouse or being a mother. I don't, it could be none of those things or all of those combined, but I think it's yours to decide. So it's kind of your calm or your chaos, so to speak, I guess, but the priority should be to get there. So
Right.
I guess to shorten that was really long.
I mean, that's good, right?
Prioritize your life around what you want to achieve or accomplish. And I encourage all women to empower and support other women in their journey, no matter what that is.
Yeah. I mean, supporting the woman around you is the first step for empowerment, right? From all aspects of life. So,
Very well.
and how do you think women having, these leadership roles as yourself and the other women in your organization can support other women if they want to go for a leadership roles?
The first thing I say is support them with the encouragement and let them know they are killing it. Like that's a thing women always, I think, struggle with is what you're doing is right. Just keep doing it. Leadership roles are tough. It's getting better, but I think there's still a wall for women to climb. I think it's because of this wall, I feel like some end up being too strong-willed to compensate for this imbalance that we have going on. And unfortunately, I think that is kind of detrimental to the real effectiveness women have in leadership roles. So the very first thing I would say is always support women with let them know they're killing it, because that way we don't create this too strong-willed of environment to compensate for that imbalance.
Right. And what do you think about equality in pay and the job designations for women? Do you think there is some difference when compared to, I don't know, some other designations, which is related to maybe for men and not for women?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I wish all roles were compensated agnostically. You know, I see strides here with certain companies now are posting the salary, and some states are even requiring this, the listed ranges, but I think there's still a long way to go.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, it affects a lot of different classes, not just women. I mean, there's obviously ageism, there's all kinds of different classes it affects, but I think if we see this, to get to a point where it is all agnostic, I think that would be ideal.
Right.
Small steps are being made, but there's a lot more work to be done.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to do here. I know. All right, so I mean that's nice. And what practical steps have you taken to reduce, barriers faced by women in organizations such as flexible working hours, remote working, maternity leaves, as you yourself being, marketing expert?
So yeah, it's a kind of a funny one, because I actually worked remotely before remote was even really in our vocabulary.
Nice.
I know, right? I'm lucky for that reason. But early on in my career, I did work for a marketing agency that when I was hired, we had hours in office, typical, that were 8 to 5. At the time I was very young and I had 2 young children at home. And they decided, due to the coast that we were on and the majority of the clients we had, that they wanted to change that work day to be 10 to 7 in the office. So basically, I was told I had to commit to this 10 to 7 or there was really no job for me. And, you know, I went in and I pitched my story of, listen, I have kids at home. I need to be home. I need to have dinner. I need to put them to bed.
Yeah,
like,
right.
so I said, no, like, I'm not going to do that. And so I left, you know, I tried, it didn't work. So I left the company, and 3 weeks later, I actually got a call asking if I wanted to come back, that they had altered the policy. But at that point I said no, but I am glad they changed the policy. And of course they're now a completely remote company, but I feel like in a little bit of a way, I kind of helped push that.
Wow. I mean, that's
Maybe,
wonderful, right? That's wonderful. I mean, see, you served an inspiration for them now, right?
I hope so. But, you know, throughout my career, I think the reason I got to work remotely was because I really focused more on the challenge in front of me, like built the strategy or the team that kind of needed to be built.
Right.
So if I could do that in remote, I proved myself first, and then I transitioned to remote to pave the way for others. So sometimes, you know, there just is a challenge. It may require an office, so I would stay in office. But if I think key for women is to focus on what needs to get done and do it, and then you build this work environment that you want.
Yeah. So you would say it's more about the balance, right?
Right. Like, if you know you're making a difference, keep doing that, keep plugging towards it. And if you get an ultimatum that doesn't make sense for you and you can't change the culture or processes, no matter how hard you tried, then move on, because someone else out there will need your expertise. So that's, I guess, my advice. And that's
I mean, that's a good advice, actually, like, you know, trying in the very different ways and trying your own pace, like, you know, how you want to build the team around you and how the environment wants around you. I think that's a good advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and which also, you know, brings me to my next question. So in any organization, you know, they might come across to many roadblocks, you know, while they're running the company and all this stuff. And you know, there being a woman, do you think women have these capabilities of thinking out of the box, or is there any difference to you?
Well, honestly, I think women's nature is by default to think outside the box. And this again is probably going to age me a little, but, you know, we've had to prove our intelligence and value outside of a traditional caregiver and think more creative ways to do this. So without being perceived as too direct, or, I mean, bitchy, if you can bleep that out, maybe, for lack of a better term. If you think about women, many of us have had to redirect children. We've had to worry about humans that they may be coming, and we've had to think outside the box every time we deal with every stage of their development, while many balancing a full-time career. You know, so that becomes challenges that, I don't know, I feel like we face. These make us one of the most qualified individuals to come to a company or to a career that you choose, that you're passionate about, and bring that knowledge, so you can navigate roadblocks and you can create solutions to almost any situation that you're thrown. I mean, I feel like we think on our feet and we're ferociously persistent, but we do that kind of with an empathetic, nurturing underlying tone that just makes us uniquely qualified to get things done.
Yeah. So that's being said, it also adds to say to your comment is like, you know, we become more resilient and become more, you know, stronger, but without losing our empathy and, you know, our nature of, you know, taking care of things and, like, you know, getting the thing done, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, we are ferociously persistent women, but we are definitely empathetic and nurturing, because that's just how we were designed.
Exactly.
And that just makes it a very unique combination.
Yeah.
We're powerful if we apply those.
Yeah, so true, actually, so true. Yeah, so April, you are yourself a customer marketing expert, right? So do you think you have, you know, faced any challenge coming to the, you know, in the topic of a women empowerment, which you could relate to?
Yeah. So I think everyone in, I would say even outside of marketing, but the biggest
Yes.
challenge I see is keeping up with how, where, and when people want to engage and connect. That goes across for any business. How they choose to connect with people or a company or a brand is it's completely personal. And nowadays we have a plethora of options. So, you know, they can be anywhere at any time, immediate, they expect a lot. And I think it's a challenge to keep up with the channels. I think it's a challenge to provide them with these personalized experience they want. And I think it's a challenge to have the forethought to kind of be able to determine, you know, when these preferences change and be there for them in all the locations. I think secondarily and arguably more important for women in leadership and is more difficult to tie all of that back to revenue accordingly, so we can determine where the most efficient and effective use of our dollars is in acquiring and retaining customers.
Right. I see your point here. And this from, you know, as you mentioned that this was one of your biggest challenges. And from this challenge, what would be the one takeaway you would like to share with women in tech for their growth?
Be authentic. Don't be afraid. Try it, do it, test it, and don't be limited by your what ifs. I mean, we're kind of in this like unique time where personal and professional worlds are coexisting. So I think we should utilize this to our advantage and get out there and combine your passions and your hobbies with your career.
Right. I mean, that's the best advice, right? For any woman, you know, trying to build their career.
Exactly.
And yeah, so last but not the least, if you could, what advice you would give to your younger self? Is there anything you would want her to change while building her career?
Oh, absolutely. If I could go back, right? I would say a couple of important things that come to mind. Change the world if you want, but remember that changing one person's day can be just as impactful. If you don't like something, if you don't like it, you should change it. And if you can't change it, move on, but learn from it, because there's always going to be things you can't change. I think make mistakes, but maybe don't dwell on them, learn from them. Take the time to reflect on it, but don't get caught up in feeling sorry for yourself. Oh, I know. As you get older, you got to remember all the wisdom and experience and expertise you've gained, and have empathy and not arrogance for others as you go through this. They go through the same things you may have already experienced.
Oh, yeah, that is that is such a beautiful thing to say, April. Like, yeah, using, you know, from the mistakes, learning all this wisdom and experience and using them ahead in your life to build a better life for yourself is, I mean, that would be the best advice.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, I think it's like, you got to remember that most of that knowledge and wisdom likely came through mistakes you made and you learned from. So, you know, share it, have empathy. And most importantly, life is short. Get out there, always be learning and enjoy it. That's probably all. I'm sure I have more advice for me, but it's good enough for now.
I mean, that's right. That's right. Because I mean, I don't think like, you know, any advice is a wrong advice. So we are all open to any kind of advice, right?
Right. We got women empowering women. It's important. It's hard. but we're uniquely qualified to do that, I think.
Yes, actually. So, April, thank you very much. It was a wonderful conversation with you. I've learned a lot of things. I already got you know, a couple of advices from you because I'm also building my career and all. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you for supporting, you know, our series and all, sharing your stories for, you know, so that our younger generation of women can just look up to you and then think like, you know, if she could do it, why not me?
Right. Everyone can do it. You just gotta apply yourself. Thank you so much for having me. It was great. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a minute. I'll just stop the recording.